I know that I'm not alone in thinking that the Prince of Persia trilogy is one of the best to come out of the 6th generation of games. Debate about the consistency of the trilogy aside, it was clever and challenging, full of interesting level design with thought-provoking puzzles all throughout the series, while also presenting us with one of the most interesting protagonists that we had seen up until that point. And that makes it all the more disappointing that Ubisoft has had absolutely zero idea what to do with the series since, I don't know, more than a decade ago? They tried to reboot the series back in 2008, which didn't really pan out, and then they dropped a midquel to the Sands of Time trilogy back in 2010, but I mean, come on, it's right there in the script. It almost became wishful thinking to hope we'd get anything in the vein of a worthwhile follow-up for the Prince of Persia games, considering that Ubisoft has fallen off insanely hard in the years following Far Cry 3 coming out. And that hurts for me too, because I was a really big fan of the Assassin's Creed games back in the day, up until they started getting super repetitive and boring and started focusing more on like gods and Vikings and all that other shit instead of like the actual plot, which in retrospect was poor timing on my part. When I got the Brotherhood insignia tattooed on my arm, I didn't think ahead and wore long sleeves for recording today, so here's a picture. But I guess I'll save the possible regret of this for the maybe file in my life. However, in the middle of all of that, we got an announcement for a brand new Prince of Persia game subtitled The Lost Crown that I think a lot of people were ignoring when it first got announced. Whether it was for all those aforementioned reasons, or the Killmonger cut on the protag, or the fact that there was this preconceived notion that the game was gonna suck because it was 2D instead of a 3D game, which makes me think a lot of people don't know the actual original games were 2D games, but I digress. It could be any number of reasons, but I think this game deserves a little bit more attention, which is why I'm here today, because it came out in January and, spoilers, this game is good. I've already got the Platinum Trophy on PS5, so I wanted to make this video and discuss why you probably shouldn't be ignoring this game. Therefore, without further ado, here is my review for Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown on PlayStation 5.
Hey, yo, Giant, let's go!
In this version of Persia, the land was once governed by a godly bird called the Simorgh, with power over time and space, who would choose the monarchs of the land and bestow blessings to the country. But after the death of the previous king Darius, the Simorgh disappeared, leaving Persia open to ruin and war. It's in this setting that you're introduced to our protagonist, Sargon, member of the Immortals, the most elite unit of warriors in Persia. That's right. You are not the prince this time around, apparently. Not even the leader of the unit, but Sargon is something of a prodigy that gains the attention of the Queen Tomiris when he single-handedly takes down the general of the Kushan army. Affording them a single moment of reprieve from war, Sargon is given recognition along with a sash that signals his status among the royals in a ceremony where he meets the actual prince, Hassan. Breaking from the leader of the Immortals, Varum, to celebrate with his team, all seems well, but the celebration is quickly cut short when Anahita, general of the Persian army and mentor to Sargon, kidnaps Prince Hassan and makes for Mount Kaf, where the Simorgh was said to reside before it disappeared. At Queen Tomiris' orders, Varum, Sargon, and the rest of the Immortals make for Mount Kaf to save the prince. But upon arriving, the group quickly finds the decayed remains of Persian soldiers who went ahead to lead the search. Something isn't right here though, because according to Sargon, these guys only left last night, but their bodies are heavily decomposed. Just then, a powerful shriek pierces the sky and magic traps the gang on Mount Kaf, so they decide to split up and search for clues. But the minute Sargon is left alone, all the dead soldiers start reanimating and attacking. After exploring Mount Kaf, you start running into people who have been here for far longer than they're letting on, insinuating and later confirming that they're not just unable to leave, but that they are trapped in time, with time itself flowing cyclically and erratically all at once for everyone on the mountain. Some dead soldiers you find state that one night for you was 30 years for them, while some of your allies mention that after splitting from you, what may have been hours for you was days for them. Following a bit more exploration, fighting off zombies and mythical beasts, seeing visions of a young boy running through the ruins, and finding feathers of the Sea Morgue that grant magical abilities to Sargon, he finally manages to catch up to Anahita, who's been giving you the runaround up to this point. Then, just as you are about to save Prince Hassan, Varum shows up and...
I'll deal with this.
Thank you, Varum. Anahita, please surrender. Varum?
No!
Hassan!
So that's not good. And he immediately follows up by trying to off Anahita, but Sargon steps in and allows her to leave. Varum reveals that his true aim was to make it to the peak of Mount Kaf to gain the hidden powers of the Sea Morgue said to lie there and usurp the throne. He quickly styles on Sargon too because he's basically Virgil from Devil May Cry, plus having the power to rewind time, which is some fucking bullshit, and throws Sargon to the pit below. Sargon is taken aback by Varum's betrayal and laments his failure to save the prince, thinking back about how he first got into the Immortals by challenging Varum to a fight and losing, but gaining the eye of Varum, who recruited him into the fold. When an old man Sargon previously met leads him to a sealed pit in the mountain said to hold an evil god that may actually help Sargon reverse the outcome of current events. Along the way, he once again sees the young boy who identifies himself as Varum, and he also says he's looking for his dad? Huh. Not long after that, Sargon presses on to unlock the prison, finding this supposed god, Ajdahar, which is a giant snake that agrees to help after we beat her in a fight. She directs us to activate a set of constellations that will power a time machine to return us to a point where Prince Hassan was alive. But it won't be that easy because while we were doing that, Varum told the Immortals that Sargon killed Hassan and manages to convince them that he should rule Persia. At first I thought it shouldn't have been that easy to convince them all to follow Varum with this spiel, but then I remembered the fact that I live in the US in 2024. Thankfully though, it's not all the Immortals who side with Varum because two of the Immortals, Nate and Artaban, side with Sargon for the rest of the game as they know him better than that. The others, Menelaus, Orad, and Rajan, side with Varum and oppose Sargon. They end up being the boss fights that make up the next main section of the game, and the aftermath of these confrontations weighs heavily on Sargon's mind as he kills Menelaus and Orad, who just wanted the best for Persia. Well, Menelaus did. Orad just wanted a good fight, I guess, but the lines were too blurred and it led to blows, leaving Sargon's only choice being to end them. Even sadder still, they truly held no hatred in their hearts for Sargon, simply believing in Varum's alleged ability to rule Persia better than Queen Tomiris, who apparently hasn't done much in 30 years to help the country out of their predicament. He also runs into Anahita again and says that regardless of whatever her reasons might have been, he can no longer trust her, to which she regrettably understands and bids farewell to him. Sargon proceeds to activate the time machine and ends up at the very moment that Varum killed Hassan, blocking his kill shot. But when Varum turns the blade on him to keep him from running his mouth, Anahita takes the attack intended for him, dying and leading to a rematch between the three Immortals, because now there's two Sargons here. The power Sargon has gained during the quest allows him to even the playing field, which I'm glad for because not once, but twice does Varum chin-check the weaker version of Sargon with his sword hilt, and I've just about had it with this level of disrespect. But as the battle comes to a draw, their clashes create a window in time where Sargon sees a vision of a young Varum and his dad. And who is Sargon's dad? Why, none other than King Darius, meaning that this whole time, Varum was the rightful Prince of Persia. But when Varum was set to receive the Sea Morgue's blessing to succeed Darius, Queen Tomiris interrupted the ceremony, stabbing Darius and Varum before shattering the Sea Morgue's body. King Darius used the last of his life to instill power into Varum to save him before he died, and Varum went into double agent mode for most of his life in preparation for the current events. With the revelation that this wasn't just a grab at power but a revenge tour to reclaim what's rightfully his, Varum retreats, stating his ultimate goal now is to absorb the heart of the Sea Morgue at the peak of Mount Kaf and essentially become a god. Sargon's past and current self fuse together, making him even more powerful than he already was, and he gives chase. But when he finds him at the top of the Tower of Silence, praying to his father for guidance, he challenges Sargon to find him at the Palace of the Sea Morgue before leaving once more, and in his place, King Darius' body reanimates, looking like a Dark Souls boss. Sargon manages to defeat King Darius, and with his last words, Darius urges Sargon to save his son, leaving him with the key to the Sea Morgue's palace. Once there, Sargon sees a young Varum one last time, and the young boy urges Sargon to keep him from ending up like his grown, vengeful counterpart. And so, you enter the chamber to face off with Varum one more time. He offers Sargon a final chance to join him, which is quickly refused, and then he absorbs the heart of the Seymour, creating a void dimension where everything is destroyed. But just as Sargon is wallowing in his failure, the Seymour itself appears and urges Sargon to finish the fight because only he can reverse what's been done at this point. After a literal god had to give Sargon a pep talk, he approaches Varum, now reborn as a godly figure, and the two face off in a cosmically epic finale. And despite Varum constantly cheesing his rewind ability,
Hacks! I call hacks!
Sargon manages to beat the godhood out of him. Brought back to his senses, Varum sees the damage he's caused and sacrifices himself, entering the singularity he created and ripping out his heart before throwing it in, causing his rewind power to activate and revert everything back to the way it was. Sargon returns to the city of Persepolis with Prince Hassan, who removes his crown and leaves before Sargon reveals that the immortals all died, as well as the fact that King Darius didn't just pass on, he was murdered. With the royal court buzzing at the news, he turns to Queen Tamiris and basically says he'll allow her to confess her crimes, leaving her to face her fate. A mic drop moment if I ever saw one. With his mission complete, Sargon takes a moment to rest at a pond in front of the palace when a bird lands next to him. Looking in the pond, the bird's reflection shows as the old man who helped him throughout the journey before taking off into the horizon. I take this as a sort of message that Sargon has more to experience, and after the credits roll, an end credit scene shows Sargon prepping to leave Persia when Nate and Artaban call to him, with young Varum in tow. Nate says she'll take care of Varum, and Sargon leaves, smiling as he takes off on what I can only assume is his next journey. To be totally honest, I enjoyed the story of this game a whole lot, even though I think there's a lot of unresolved plot points and general plot holes. Well, what do you mean, Sleepy? I thought it was pretty clear. And I'm so glad you asked, a disembodied voice of a potential viewer/question asker. Let me list the things I noticed. Number 1. Why is Sargon so special? Well, that's not really the question. I'm about to answer that one in service of asking another. So here goes. There's a side quest during the game where you slowly uncover a hidden prophecy that reads as follows. Fates decree a king's murder unstoppable. The god Seymour disappears from the skies, power stolen. Time shattered, a world cursed. Only then will the story of the princes begin. A boy thought dead but resurrected. Anger simmers in silence. Another raised a pawn. The third, a prince born in secret. Only one can cure the curse of Mount Koth. 3 princes raised with secrets and lies. An endless time of war. A strong woman hides her tender heart, while another craves legacy of power. As Persepolis weakens, a scheme is made. Cursed winds blow across the battlefield. 2 princes stand immortal. Pawn prince taken against his will. Loyalties tested. Dark hearts revealed. Within the realm of broken memories, these 3 lives entangle. Powers gained, powers lost, true selves revealed. Fate marks one prince to die. Chaos of time unlocks a second chance. A final battle sees the hero prince slain. Then the Seymour is gone forever. Celestial judgment passed, the cosmos will collapse. The vengeful prince will be king of all gods. This clearly outlines the basic through line of the game, so I can already hear people going, wait, 3 princes? Who's the 3rd prince? Well, I'm glad you asked again, potential viewer, because it's Sargon. Well, how do you figure that? Man, you guys are full of questions today. It turns out there is another side quest where you meet a hermit who says that Sargon feels familiar to him, and upon completing his quest, you get a file that mentions how this hermit, once a doctor, delivered a baby for Queen Tamiris. However, the following day, the baby had been switched for another, and when he questioned the queen about this, she had him banished. This event is also depicted in the mural of the prophecy, so that is loosely implying that Sargon is the 3rd prince, and therefore he is not only an immortal, but also the Prince of Persia. All of this is to say that my real question is, why did Queen Tamiris get rid of Sargon at birth? I recall Hassan earlier on mentioning that the queen had never been the motherly sort, so I can assume she either didn't recognize her own baby even though she stated otherwise in the hermit's note, or just straight up didn't want him. But this event is never explicitly stated, and so we never get an answer for what the queen's motivation was. At best, we can only assume she aimed to hold on to her power for a little longer, maybe, which is kinda boring if true. I guess we can only hope that they didn't Julius Caesar her in the courtroom after Sargon put her on the spot or something, so we can maybe get an answer at some point down the road, but that's all we got for now. Number 2. What happened to Rajen? You know, the one creepy immortal who was basically the ninja of the group? Yeah, you never fight her when you fight the immortals, and once Varum sticks the group on you, she's actually never seen again after that scene. You only see her in the beginning when the group splits up, once as you enter the depths because there's one member in every area exploring, and after Varum's betrayal, she just straight up vanishes. If you do enough exploring, you stumble upon a dungeon room with a bunch of dead soldiers and find a note written by her that reads like a weird combo of a love letter and a declaration of her undying loyalty to Varum, while also shitting on Sargon because he gets all the attention. Aww. And that one's optional, but that's all you get. Number 3. What about Ajdahar? The big snake god boss thing that helped you out? Why was she imprisoned? And what did she stand to gain from helping you? And why is she low-key forgotten about once you get what you needed from her? I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on how evil she is, and there's a blacksmith goddess named Kahiva who helps you with upgrades, and she says that Ajdahar only does things to help herself, so what was the goal? Do I hear DLC and or sequel? Number 4. Where is Sargon going? Is he like renouncing his Persian citizenship? Did he go back to Mount Kaf because you didn't go for completionism or to learn more about the history there even though he's not an archaeologist? Does he have some mission elsewhere that we're not privy to? Well, find out next time on Dragon Ball Z! All of these and a few more things are loose threads in an otherwise pretty tightly woven tapestry, so it's a shame that if you pull at the strings too tight, it threatens to unravel everything, so that's kinda disappointing. What isn't disappointing is playing this game though, because oh man, this game is so fun. It's a Metroidvania styled game, so that means exploring a big map, good combat, tons of upgrades and collectibles, the works. Sargon is just as acrobatic and capable as any prince that came before him, if not more. For one, he's the only prince I know with an air combo game, which already makes him top tier mechanically. He doesn't have a standard blocking mechanic, but he does have a parry, and sometimes enemies will glow yellow, and if you parry those, he does big flashy counters that do big damage, if not just outright killing the enemies. They also look pretty sick when you hit bosses with them. As you progress through the game, you gain powers that control time and space in the form of an air dash that's not only good for crossing gaps, but also gives you all-star level chase down when you knock enemies back off of an air combo. You also get a time clone ability, which is this game's version of the rewind power that the previous games had. I still kinda miss that, but it was more for when you fell and instantly died in the PS2 games, whereas in this, falling just gives you a little damage on your health bar and respawns you on the last safe surface you touched. With this new power, you leave an after image that you can recall yourself to with a button press, so it's good for resetting mid-combo as well as saving you from failing any platforming challenges. At the point in the story where Sargon merges with his past self, his royal sash becomes a grappling hook, and this mechanic also pulls enemies to you and vice versa, depending on the size of the enemy. You also have ranged options, as Sargon finds a duplicate of Menelaus's bow that also transforms into a chakram. It's useful for more than attacking too, as not only can you parry the chakram to keep it bouncing back and forth, but you'll also later unlock the option to teleport to wherever the chakram is, giving you all kinds of spacing and movement opportunities. There's another power called Clairvoyance that lets you interact with otherwise intangible items because you can see through dimensions using it, and also enemies because sometimes they like hiding in these other realms. And then there's the Dimensional Claw that lets you use a pocket dimension to store items and sometimes enemies. The items can be used to damage enemies or open pathways, and if you store an enemy, then you can throw them back out at any time and they'll be brainwashed to fight for you. I love how versatile these powers are because they're so smartly designed that there's a myriad of ways to utilize them, to the point I've been seeing combo vids like they do for Devil May Cry games. All totally for bragging rights because not all of this is completely necessary. You can manage doing basic stuff, but it just shows how high the skill ceiling is, you know? As you progress and explore, you'll also find amulets that Sargon can equip to his necklace that offer all kinds of effects. Passive things like health and attack boosts or showing health bars on enemies, to active powers like increasing the number of hits you can do in a combo, parries healing you, or activating time bubbles to slow down enemies like Witch Time and Bayonetta, enemies exploding on death, etc. The cost of these amulets varies, and you can unlock more amulet slots with purchases or exploration. Another collectible you can find is skins, but what they really mean by skins is recolors, because if there's anything that's actually a different kind of costume, then that's something they expect you to pay for, like the Warrior Within outfit being a pre-order bonus or a deluxe edition giving you an extra costume, which is like, you know, kind of mid. Health upgrades can also be plentiful, and with enough dedication, the health bar can end up massive. The upgrading system is also pretty straightforward, using the aforementioned blacksmith Kahiva's services to upgrade weapons and amulets, then switching amulets at whack-whack trees, which are equivalent to Dark Souls bonfires. They heal you, refill your health potions, and respawn enemies, the usual stuff. There's also a mechanic to pin screenshots of areas to the map for backtracking when you don't want to forget a spot you couldn't access, which is a super neat idea that I don't recall seeing in other Metroidvanias. I don't know right now how original that is as a concept, but I think more games should implement this. The number of possible upgrades does mean that there can be a daunting amount of collectibles that only increases over the course of the game, but the benefits are honestly worth it. That's also true in the case of Athra strikes. TLDR, Athra is basically a power system in this that gives everybody special abilities. In Sargon's case, he uses stored Athra to unleash special attacks that do big damage. Throughout the game, Sargon learns new Athra strikes not only through boss battles with the Immortals, but with winning secret fights against alternate timeline versions of himself and absorbing their powers. These go from level 1 to 3, and the payoff in earning these are huge. There's one you get from Menelaus that's a counter that really just ends in you hitting people with a fucking Kamehameha, and it can melt boss health bars, so I keep this in the rotation, trust me. But you can only equip 2 at a time, however, so that gives you a lot of options to mull over, much like everything else in the game, and that helps it feel like no power is truly useless. It all just depends on how you play. Moving on from that, I love this game's vibe. I did think the models were a little weird sometimes, giving off the style of one of those games that want to visually be Fortnite so bad, like the Darwin Project or Deceive Inc., but I quickly leaned away from those comparisons in my mind when I saw how expressive these character models can be. Sargon is at times in universe likened to a raging tiger, and other immortals like Orod, whose joyous, boastful personality is on full display at all times when you can look past how hard he's trying to beat Kratos in combat, what with the chains on his arms and how he uses them in battle with his anchor blade things. But again, Varum had to flex the hardest because he does stuff like this. The soundtrack is so good too. I don't know what I was missing in game music lately, but this game follows in the footsteps of its PS2 predecessors, delivering really good Middle Eastern inspired sounds that really set the scene in all areas, mixed with hard-hitting guitars during big fights to deliver mysterious, eclectic, and epic backing to almost every corner of this game. I need more of this because it's been harder to parse out good soundtracks I enjoy lately when the game isn't wholly retro inspired, and this is a really good OST. The voice acting is solid too. The game is majorly voiced outside of cutscenes in this dialogue that features the talking head style portraits, but in a move that I really like, the camera zooms in on the characters having the dialogue and shows them emoting and animating to emphasize the voice acting. It's a nice touch, best of both worlds. I won't go line by line with this for examples, but I think some of the line delivery is funny as hell to me. Like, here, early on, Queen Samaras goes, "Varum, gather your forces."
Varum, gather your forces.
Which was pretty standard, I think, but my intrusive thoughts kicked in and I heard it like, "Expelliarmus." It wasn't all like that though. Ultimately, the entire package this game presents is something I thoroughly enjoyed. Ubisoft may have lost their crown as a AAA publisher, but Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is proof that there's still room for truly creative experiences under their umbrella. After roughly 20 hours to beat the game and a platinum trophy in 30, I was left completely satisfied with this game. It's $50 and it's going on sale regularly lately, so I highly recommend this one, especially if you can find it for a discount. I can only hope that this game gets more love in the near future because I fear that it's already becoming seriously overlooked. But what do you think? Leave a comment and tell me how you feel about the return of the Prince, and maybe leave a like and subscribe along the way. I'd like that. But for now, I'd also like to take a moment to shout out my patrons, especially Gamey Ghost. So thank you for supporting the channel, and if you want to support me and the works I produce here, be sure to check the link in the description for the One Sleepy Giant Patreon and join the Sleepy City crew. We welcome all kinds. We'd love to have you. And with that, you already know what it is. My name is Hector and I'm One Sleepy Giant. I had a lot of fun with this one, but I'm a little worn out, so I need a nap. We'll pick this conversation up later, okay? Take care of yourselves.